Thank you. Cool. All right. So, firstly, good evening. My name is Matt. I'm the head of product design at Redgate, and you've got the pleasure of me hosting for this evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the Redgate UX meetup. So this is part of our Ingeniously Simple brand that we'll talk about a bit more towards the end of the session. So today I'm joined by my co-hosts, Chris and Divya. Do you want to give everyone a wave?
Hello.
Cool. So a very quick bit about Redgate. So Redgate is a software company, a successful software company, and we have been making what we call ingeniously simple products for people in the SQL Server space for over 20 years. We have a fairly large team of designers, and the remit of design and user experience at Redgate is such that we believe it's really integral to how we create great products that our customers love. So the design is something that we practice across our area of the business, and we believe it's fundamental to how we satisfy the needs of customers with software. In terms of this evening, but before we start, I guess a little context for the meetup itself. So we've been doing this for a while, actually quite a few years, and it's come back in various shapes and forms. The reason we do it though is basically to give the community, you folks, a platform to allow us to sort of share best practices, learning experiences around the practice of user experience design. As I say, the membership and the format of that's changed over the years, and we're kind of pleased to bring this back now in a kind of fully remote format. So we hope it works, but it's the second time doing it, so excuse any rough edges. We're trying to learn as we go, so if you've got any feedback, we're happy to hear from you, and we want to make this better for you moving forwards as well. So we understand as well that not everyone can attend paid conferences, so we like to think this is our attempt to provide a kind of free, accessible and friendly forum for people to share that learning and develop some skills around user experience. So I mentioned user experience a lot, but actually we wanted to make this quite a diverse platform as well. So whether you're from a user experience background or product design or user research, or you're more aligned to product management, we see a lot of blur between those disciplines. So actually we're trying to create a space where we can hear from all sorts of folks, covering all those things I mentioned and everything in between. So moving on though, I guess why you're here tonight is to hear from our speaker. So pleased to welcome Irene. A bit of background on Irene. I hope I get this right, Irene. Correct me if I get any of it wrong. So Irene leads the UX department at Ekino in London, and she's part of the Havas Group there. She's responsible for providing strategic leadership and direction for all UX projects in the London portfolio, developing the methodology and approaches around research and building a UX profile across Havas. So over the last 10 years, she's helped clients undertake digital transformations and improve their existing digital ecosystems across a large variety of industries, from financial services, healthcare to real estate and food retail. You'll likely have seen some of Irene's work if you bank with HSBC UK, Santander, are a practitioner in the NHS, or shop at Sainsbury's. So she's been in a few places by the sound of it. There'll be time after the talk for questions, but we're going to try and let Irene go through her talk. If you've got questions during the talk though, do put them through the chat feature in Zoom. After the talk, Divya will be there to kind of facilitate and try and take some questions as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Irene. And if I can find Zoom. There we go. All yours, Irene.
Super, thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen, bear with me. Excellent. Great, so I mean, I don't really need to do an introduction anymore. Matt has done a cracking job at that. Yeah, essentially I work at Ekino, which is part of the Havas Group, and I'm the UX department there. When I arrived years ago, there was basically no UX department. I was brought in to build it from scratch, and it's pretty much the only UX department at Havas UK. So as part of my day-to-day, I lead projects, I launch my team, I run the department, I handle UX queries at Havas, I create new leads within our existing clients, and I also pitch for external new business. So my day is really varied, and not today's the same. Also, whenever I get to do wires, I feel really chill and really grateful for it, because I don't get to do that so much anymore, and it's so fun. But anyway, a few years ago, this would probably be my worst nightmare. So I was really good at presenting work in front of clients, really modest there as well, but I was actually terrified of public speaking, and that would even include like presenting at a company meeting, even just like presenting in front of people that were clients, just really scary for me. I thought it was going to hinder my career, and I tried to get better at it and just try to overcome that. And looking back on it, I just wish somebody had told me a few of the things that I'm going to tell you today. So that hopefully is going to be useful for you the next 30 minutes. Overall, I think when people think public speaking, they think about like doing a talk like this or presenting your work. I actually think presentation skills go beyond that, and I think they are really underrated, and they're really important to your career. I think the same skills that you see in examples are also applicable to when you are presenting your work, for example, to stakeholders for a review or a checkpoint, but equally but different, presenting a large milestone to a very senior stakeholder, or talking your project lead about your project, or talking to other team members about a project, talking to leads, so people from the industry, not necessarily within your company, about your work, whenever you're pitching, creating your portfolio, and even when you are applying for or going for a job interview. I think that by deconstructing presentation skills, you can see how the same skills can be applied to any of these scenarios, and hopefully you can create a mental checklist that allows you to be able to go through them and feel ready before present. Now, when we think about presentation skills, we probably think about the subject matter and the audience. And actually, you're right. If you nail them, then you're already giving a good presentation. And I'm going to talk about this today. However, I believe that if you expand on those areas and you also touch on these, then your presentation becomes really good. So today's presentation is meant to give you an overview of take into consideration when putting a presentation together or when presenting. So as I go, I will also be giving you examples to illustrate my points, but there's not one size that fits all. Loose guide, and I'm hoping that essentially you take it and you make it you see what works. So as part of subject matter to deconstruct it into talking about, you're talking about, and what you show on the screen. So we're talking about start way before your presentation. I have to think about it micro to macro, so small to big. So not everyone is interested on everything, and also you don't have the time to talk through it all the time. So if you have rationale for everything that you're talking about, it will allow you to more easily target what you're talking about or quickly approach if you do. So have a rationale for your work, for Christ's sake. It's on the page, there's a reason. And that applies to when you're talking through your work or when you do like a talk like this.
It doesn't matter what you're talking about or how you're talking about it, just make sure you have a rationale. So basically that way you can change your approach and quickly adapt if you need to. Now, if you have a rationale for your work, you still need to go into structure it, at the very least in your mind, how you're going to talk about something. So it doesn't matter who you're talking to, you're going to need to introduce your work. You're going to need to probably explain your work, and possibly you're going to need something from the person that you are showing it to. So like feedback or a collaboration session. So I would suggest put together a few slides, and that can help you pace the conversation and make sure you are covering all of the points to talk through. So spend 15 minutes, find structure to your thoughts, and that's going to help others understand your work. In addition to that, it might also help you see some gaps that you might not have seen if you were just delivering the work or delivering the talk. So actually is a way of finding errors and gaps in your own thinking. Now, what you show on the screen should never take away from what you're saying. So if needed, you should have two versions of the same presentation, one for the screen and one as a takeaway, or one that you can send later on, where you're explaining your rationale, where you're explaining your talk. So you can either start with the simple one as a skeleton when you're creating it and build up on that, or create a more complex one and then shave off it. So less is more, all eyes on you. You want to make sure your words are not actually distracting from what it's important, essentially, which is your presentation of your work or of your talk. And with that, we move on to the audience. And I like to deconstruct that into who you're talking to, their motivations, and their background knowledge. So I think that internal stakeholders are actually the same as external ones. The only difference is how much you know about them. Like, really, if you think about it, it's the same. Whether the external stakeholders are clients or people in your industry is exactly the same. You're delivering the same. You just know less about who they are or what they know or what they're into, right? So use the people around you, whether it's your colleagues to find out more about the clients, or whether your clients to find out about other stakeholders, or an event organizer to find out more about the attendees. So find out as much as you can and use people around you as test beds potentially. So maybe deliver that presentation or that talk to them and see what they think. If they know the audience better, their opinion will be useful and helpful. Now, the motivations of your audience may vary. So change your presentation around that. What do I mean by that? I mean, take exactly the same thing. Take a project that you want to talk about, right? Again, it could be to people in your company, or it could be as a talk. So let's look at some scenarios. Take that project. If you're presenting that project to a project lead, they probably want to know what the thinking behind it is, the thinking behind the project. If you're presenting that project to a director in your company, they probably want to know what you're working on. So actually, you don't need to go into that much granular detail. If you're presenting to a client, they want to know how this is right for the audience or for the business goals. If you're presenting to a new client, they probably want to know that you can deliver what they need. So they want to understand that you have the skills and that you have a working dynamic that they can work with. And if you're presenting it to the industry as a talk, they probably want to know what the learnings are and how they can use those learnings for their projects. You're still presenting the same work, but the motivations vary. Therefore, you should change the presentation around that. Now, equally, how much your audience knows should dictate the amount of information, the pace, and the language that you use to deliver it. So if this is the first time you're presenting your work to your client, they're going to need more information than, for example, if it were the fourth time or the fourth round of amends. God forbid, there's no fourth rounds of amends, but you know what I mean by that. Similarly, if you're presenting to a client, their level of understanding of UX or of design in general, it could be way less than you're used to. So change the wording around that, change your jargon, change the pace, so it's more of an educational experience. So let's recap. We've agreed that you know your shit and you have a cracking presentation and you're the star of it and you have information about your audience. You know what they want to see and how much they know about it. Therefore, let's look at knowing that and taking that into consideration, what that looks like in some scenarios. Scenario number one being a standard review point, for example. So you know what you're talking about, and your lead, your project lead or your client knows a little bit about the project, but they may need a refresh. So you give them a recap of the project goals and you talk a little bit about the audience in more or less depth so they have bigger context. Now, if you're presenting lots of work, you start big. So architecture past medium, like a page, into small modules. So that way they get an overview and allows them to understand the thinking down to a granular level. Now you tie that back to work to the audience and the goals, so they understand how the project as a whole works and why it's good. If it's a research brief, debrief, possibly you didn't know what you were talking about, but after research, now you do. And maybe your client had some background information, but they don't know the new information. So you summarize, so they know better what they're going to see. And also debriefs can be so dry, right? So have fun, right? We like it. This is what we do. It's likely that you don't think it's dry, but your clients don't necessarily live for research, so make it fun. For example, create a quiz for them, right? And finally, demonstrate that you know what you're talking about by creating actionable recommendations rather than just loose insights. So something that they know that you can go away and create something from that. For a talk, again, you know what you're talking about, but your audience may also know it. So you structure your story so it has an introduction, a core, you expand it, and then you tie it back to your points. And you speak the same language because ultimately it's likely they're your colleagues, and actually you get your point across quicker and easier. And lastly, a job interview. Now, you don't necessarily know what they want to see, so ask in advance what they want to see. And don't necessarily talk through the work you sent if you can't, because they're looking to see how you work and what you can add. So try to add something new or talk about a new project. And when you're doing that, give a bird's eye view. So give context around the whole project, including the challenges, so they can see where it's like to work with you. Now, so those were the two, subject matter and audience were the two areas that I think people tend to think about the most. I'm going to run through the other four that I actually think that can make you create a really, really good presentation if you take them into consideration. Next one being the speaker, and I'll deconstruct that into your presenting personality and your body language. So by all means, what I'm going to talk about, it doesn't mean that you need to change who you are. Please don't. I think being who you are is what's going to make you be a good presenter. What I'm talking about is potentially creating a more suitable version of you that is going to be more aligned to your audience. So it might be the first time you meet your audience, or you may have met them many times before, and you can always tweak your version of you to make it more suitable. So with new clients that you're about to start a project together, it's good to bear in mind as it can set the tone of that relationship, but you can still do it on the fly as you go. Now, your presenting personality should match your audience and the occasion. And with time, you will get better at quickly identifying what kind of presenter or what kind of designer you need to be for your audience, and specifically for your clients. But even then, I truly think that you should rely as much as you can on your coworkers to get information on your audience, so you can tweak your presentation or your presenting personality accordingly. So reinvent yourself to suit you. I know it sounds really cheesy, but I definitely live by it. I personally have different presenting styles if I'm delivering work, for example, to a mostly female or a mostly male client board. again, this is not always the case, but a male client board tends to be more assertive and tends to just have more balls to speak over each other, right? When as a female board, actually, they are a lot more respectful of like talking times, and they can be a little bit less assertive. So I tweak my personality accordingly to that to make sure that everybody's get a say, and actually my moderator hat comes on and off a lot more. Equally, for example, some clients feel more at ease when looking at a PowerPoint presentation than any other format. So then, for example, like a work in progress board, or some clients want you to be directive and assertive, while others are really quick to voice an opinion and actually they want to be heard. If you have a very strong minded client, that can potentially also derail your presentations. So you're going to have to establish yourself as a voice of authority. Now, this can be easier to do when you're in a senior position than if you are in a junior position. But again, I would say make sure in that case you rely, or you get your colleagues to help you gain the space. You're going to need to voice your expertise and establish boundaries for you. So, I mean, you can probably pinpoint a theme of like, come on, use your colleagues. They're there for a reason. I can't stress enough how much they're going to make a difference in, you know, actually you delivering a good presentation or helping you do that. So yeah, just tweak yourself according to those scenarios, and you will get better with time at understanding what that is. Now, your body language. Don't underestimate the power of jazz hands. And for those of you that are introverted, this probably adds a whole other layer of anxiety to presenting. Remember that in many cases the audience doesn't know you, right? So make use of that. Also, work the room, as in like bridge that gap that occurs when like two people or more meet and they don't know each other, right? Physically work the room, like walk around, get close to your audience, look at them, address them directly to establish rapport, and ideally involve them in what you're talking about as much as you can. Time could be an hour, one session, multiple sessions. Regardless, my advice is bring your audience on a journey. It doesn't matter how long you have. If you have an hour, try to make it feel like 3. If you have a session, try to make it feel like multiple ones. If you have multiple sessions, try to make it feel like months. Bring them on that journey with you so they feel that they've been working with you for longer, that they've been listening to you for longer, that they know how you work and how you think. Create that sense of collaboration, if you want, in order to sort of bring what would take longer amounts of time, longer processes in a shorter amount of time. Now, the place, it could be physical or online, and also there's going to be your knowledge of it. So play with the space that you have and acknowledge its limitations. There's good and bad things about doing presentations or talks online or doing them in person. So in person, we have talked about working the room by walking or getting close to your audience. When it's online, ideally, if there's no technical difficulties, I like to have my camera on so you guys can see how I'm talking about things, and you can see my eyebrows going a bit crazy and my, you know, continental hands just flapping around the screen, right? Also, online talks are a great platform for those of you that are not so confident at giving presentations or giving talks, right? You literally just talking to a screen. There's no really, my cat is here, but she doesn't care. So again, it's just like a great opportunity for you to get into presenting, whether it's to clients or whether it's to a larger audience. And then there's the knowledge of, your knowledge of the space. If it's incomplete, again, ask about it. Get photos of the space where you will be. for example. This is going to allow you to see, for example, how big it is, how big the room is, and how separate from your audience you're going to be, how easy it's going to be to work the room and do some jazz hands. And it's going to allow you to see if there are walls, for example, where you can put up your stuff, or whether they're too small or there's pillars and so on, or if there's a large table instead. If you think about how you can use your environment in advance, you're going to be able to give a better presentation, because you know exactly what you're doing, when, and how you're doing it. So let's recap. We've talked about how you know what you're talking about, and you have a cracking presentation, and you're the star of it, and you know what your audience wants to see and how much they know about it. And then you target your presentation styles to them, even if you're not a fan of putting on a show, and you bring them on a journey, and you make sure that the setup helps you achieve it. Now, some final scenarios to bring that to life. So if we're talking about checkpoints with clients, bring them on a rational journey, bring them into the action, right? So you may have to do an exercise about personas or a journey. Why not turn it into a workshop? Why not get them to come in and actually help you build those personas? It doesn't mean you haven't done work in advance. You can still prep for that, identify the gaps that you need, and bring them in the action. By bringing them in the action, for example, to do personas and journeys, it means that they are more immersed into what the user needs are. And when you're creating your designs or your wires, it's going to be easier for you to tie them back to those user needs and those goals, because they will have been in that journey with you to create what the user needs and what they need, and the personas themselves. Now, if you're in a pitch, I would say, why not recreate some checkpoints? If you are pitching, why not ask for a tissue meeting to show your work and get some feedback before the pitch? I mean, they can only say no, right? I try to get as many tissue meetings before the pitch as I can, so they can see how we work. Why not during the pitch reenact like an exercise? There's no reason why you couldn't take a piece of work that is 95% complete, and you complete the 5% in the room as part of your presentation. You know what you're doing, it's all planned, but the clients absolutely love it, because they get to see essentially how you work, even if it's all planned. What clients look for in a pitch is, yes, to make sure that you have the skills to do what you say you can do, but ultimately they also look at where they want to work with you. They look at the work dynamics, and by recreating that in the pitch process, you get to let them see that, and have a closer glimpse that maybe they didn't get when other people pitched in the process. And lastly, just dress the room. I can't stress it enough. Dress the room. It's not just you giving the presentation, it's the room itself. Make use of the walls, make use of the table, and use that to your advantage to let you give a better presentation. And lastly is the purpose, which is what you want the audience to leave the room with. So today I wanted to make sure, or I wanted to get you guys to be more confident about presenting, no matter your seniority. Basically giving a good presentation an achievable goal every time. And by, giving you a better view of the elements that can result in a good presentation, and how to get them under your control, and then how to repurpose them depending on the type of presentation or who you're presenting to. So think about what you want your audience to live with and build your presentation towards that. I wanted to leave you with a clear, easy way to just give good presentations. An ultimate checklist even that you can sort of cross in your mind as you are preparing for that allows you to walk into a room confident every single time, and hopefully throughout your career as well. So I hope that helps. And that's all for today.
Cool, thank you, Irene.
Right, I'm gonna attempt to switch on my camera now.
Okay, yeah, it'd be good to see your face. Cool. Do you mind if you stop sharing screen as well? Is that all right? We'll swap back over if that's okay. Cool. I'll put this back on. It's gone. Oh, Google. Fail me now. 1 second. I'll do that again in a second. Cool. While I'm messing around with that, Divya, do you want to kind of handle the Q&A piece if anyone's got any questions?
Yeah, I haven't got any questions yet, but if someone's got any questions, feel free to. This is the time. Give a couple of minutes probably.
I'll have one. I didn't type it in. I'll just jumped in because I got the nature of that. I was really interested in that bit about doing the last 5%. We, like in our place, we do regularly kind of quarterly updates of the work we've been doing with like senior stakeholders and things like that. And it's kind of like, because you mentioned also, you mentioned both quizzes and getting people involved in kind of like a research readout. That's what our ones primarily are, and getting them involved. Do you have any like examples or resources or anything like that that work really well for that kind of stuff?
To be honest, I make it up most of the time. Like, for example, for the quizzes, right? So there will be, I've done it for like anything from like a research session, so just like, you know, a small research round, or I've done it for like an end of discovery presentation, and you put it together and then you see, right, so it's likely that your stakeholders come with their already predefined concept of what they think they need. So I definitely use that to my advantage, and I sort of show them how little they know. But it's obviously, it's a quiz, so it's really playful, and also allows you to see whether they're aligned internally or not. For example, if we are doing, we did a project across multiple countries in Europe, right? And actually turned out the different markets had different needs, as you would expect, really. So as part of the end of discovery debriefed, we said, right, who out of these countries, who do you think it was most likely to want this one thing? And then they also said, oh, Germany or UK or whatever. And obviously we show the correct country, and only maybe like whatever 50% of the people got it right. And oh, what you know, these other what countries do you think they wanted, this other thing? Again, just you using the data that you already have, and you creating quizzes. So you can create quizzes around like things that they think they knew and they didn't, or like stats, or like spot the error. Like you create something that, you know, one thing that is true and another thing that is not true, and you get them to spot which one is the correct one. So you just basically, you have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds good. That might make the next QRR a bit different than
yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
For the 5%, I do like to do that in pitches. So for example, if we take like a user journey into a page that is quite detailed, I will potentially do it. If we decide to do it with post-its, which is not always, I will leave 5-6 post-its not on the board. And then as I'm presenting it, I'll be like, how about this? And then I put it on and I talk about it out loud, and I put it in the correct place. And I do the same with the 5 or 6 of them. And it's like, oh my God, she's actually doing the user journey. But I'm not, it's all planned, obviously, right? But it, so again, gives them that, is a little bit playful, gives them that view onto how it would work, how it would be like a session, right? Although it's a pitch, but it's almost like if we were already in a project working together.
Yeah, cool. Nice one, thank you.
We've got a question from Kim Spence-Jones. I'd be interested in talking a bit more about how online presentations are different. I've had a lot of experience face-to-face, but still learning more about video.
Great. Kim, do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Well, yes, I actually have a real problem in that I'm trying to develop a pitch for a new approach to politics involving criticising this government and coming up with some better ideas for future governance. And I'm going to have to pitch this to people online because people aren't tending to take real meetings at the moment, and I'm not sure I'd want to anyway. Hence my interest in how one should plan and go about doing an online meeting.
Would you recreate one of those sessions online with them?
Not sure what you mean.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you just said you need to pitch about how to, like, what you're pitching is essentially like ways of working or like sessions. Is that correct?
What I'm actually wanting to do is to build a think tank and an associated website with sort of new ways of gathering ideas and gathering consensus. Part of the problem is that I'm right at the very edge of my own competence and learning as I go along. So somehow I have to encourage people to take that journey with me.
Great. I guess it's like, for me, it feels like maybe you're lacking a little bit of, you could use a bit more knowledge about your own audience. Correct me, again, stop me if that's not right, but I would just try to dig in a little bit more into the sort of things that they would want to see if there is somebody pitched that idea to them. So almost take a step back and see, right, what is the sort of things that you'd be interested to talk about or to hear if somebody were to pitch an idea like this to you, right? So I would almost do that little bit of research and then potentially just, again, if you want them to be on that journey with you, why not get them into a working session before that even happens as a, you know, as a way of like, well, this is how it could run, or this is how it could be, right? I'm sure that you potentially have also a network of people that you can tap into to maybe even beef up those sessions. So it's rather than just like you and two people, it's a bit bigger. So actually there's like a bit more of a dynamic. That might help.
Thank you.
Had a quick question, Irene. So I like the bit, there's several references to kind of knowing your audience, right, and being prepared to sort of present in a style that will resonate with that and connect with that audience. Have you had any situations yourself where you've kind of gone in thinking, right, I'm going to use this particular style because I think I know what they want and what's going to connect, and then having to kind of change that dynamically kind of mid-pitch or mid-presentation because you're just not feeling that people are really sort of grasping the points you're trying to make or understanding what the message that you're trying to convey?
Yeah, I think it does. It definitely does happen. And also, I do firmly believe that we don't necessarily need to have all the answers. I think it definitely, you're going to help yourself if you have to say things like, I don't know, can I get back to you on that? Which it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It just means you want to give an informed view of what you're talking about, right? So I think that helps. In regards to purely dynamic, absolutely. I've definitely had to change it. There is people that will derail a presentation that you don't necessarily know. And at that point, if you are the most senior person in the room, you definitely need to become more assertive and understand, you know, make sure you're aligned to the goals of the session or the goals of what you're trying to achieve, and stick to that and act almost as a moderator. Or if you're not the most senior person in the room, which may happen, then reach out to that one and be like, we need to stay on track. Even go as far as assigning that role to somebody out loud, like, hey Matt, do you mind being like a, you know, timekeeper or like goal checker? You know, I think there's definitely something, once that's out there and on the table, also people are more willing to stay in line if needed. But yeah, that could happen in any scenario, right? It could be as simple as like maybe we're not even talking about like a client derailing. It could be anything really. But I think with time, we get better at reading the room and changing accordingly. And we also need to be a bit easier on ourselves. That will come with experience for sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We don't have any other questions in the comment section, but I do have a question. This was asked in one of our events last week in Redgate, but I'm quite curious to know how everyone else does it. How do you deal with the post-presentation or the post-speaking cringe or the adrenaline rush that you get? Like you're thinking through like little things that you made mistakes of, like how do you deal with it?
There's nothing you can do about it. I think so. I used to be really scared of presenting, right? Until I sort of like one of the things that made it click for me was like it was like the adrenaline wave that you're describing, right? Rather than fighting it, you just ride it. You gotta. That's never. I don't think that ever goes away. I hope it never goes away because actually it's quite fun, and you gotta learn to ride the wave of adrenaline, and part of that is accepting that you are gonna make mistakes. I mean, have I made mistakes today? You guys don't know this. Only I know this, right? Like for all you know, I completely made all of these up and it was not according to plan. And you gotta remember that, right? But if you do have rationale, which is like one of the first points I made, then you are a lot more likely to stick to that and actually keep on track, even if you make little mistakes. The overall rationale for your talk, your presentation, what you're talking about, it will stay in track, and that's what matters.
Great, thanks, Irene. Has
anyone
got any questions?
Yeah, any last minute questions?
I had a question. I really like the idea of a presentation personality. I was just wondering whether Irene would be able to kind of just talk a bit more about it.
So I'm quite an introverted myself, which a lot of my friends would not say, but I actually am. I really struggle to meet new people and like talk to people I don't know. Chris is laughing because he doesn't believe that, but I am, right? But again, it's just the realization that actually in this call, I know 3 of you, but the rest doesn't know me. So for all I know, I could put on a Russian accent right now and become Russian, which I can't because I can't do accents. But it's about taking the best bits that you like about yourself and leveraging that, right? And ensuring that actually, again, people don't know you, so they don't really know that you are shitting yourself or like you don't know what you're talking about, right? And remembering that. And also using the best parts of yourself. One of the things that really helped me, for example, or used to help me a lot, is to make sure that I say something a bit funny at the beginning, because I'm quite a big fan of humor and laughs, and actually that really relaxes me. And when I see people smiling at something that I've said, it makes me feel that I have connected with the audience. So when I was starting to present, giving talks, so I would make sure that potentially I introduce myself in a slightly weird way, or like, something different rather than just like, oh, hello, I'm a designer, like I do now, which is a bit more standard. Maybe it was a funny picture, maybe it was a funny anecdote. And that little bit, which reflects on my personality in regards to just like liking a few laughs, actually helped me connect with the audience better myself. Not that it made any difference to them really, because they didn't know, but that element of my personality helped me then put my presentations better together.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, thank you very much again, Irene, and thank you for sticking around to take some questions. I'm just going to now flick back to this quickly. Can you folks see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Obviously we've done questions. So yeah, just to kind of wrap up really, and talk briefly about some of the things that we offer at Redgate, and some of the ways in which you can kind of connect with us sort of outside and around these talks and events. So if you are interested in finding out more about design and development at Redgate, there's various channels that we use to sort of reach out to and connect with different audiences. We have a Medium publication where we kind of tend to have devs and designers sharing interesting articles and pieces on how we work. We have a Twitter channel that you can follow. I think some of you are probably on that already. We have an Instagram because all the cool people have Instagram these days. I'm not sure if we fall into that, but we do. We also have a YouTube channel. So with Irene's permission and with permission from other speakers, what we're going to start to do over time is gradually sort of build up a library of talks, both as part of this meetup and sharing other things that we do internally at Redgate. So do check that out as well. And we also have a podcast. I think we're on episode 7 or 8, and I think they're trying to fire that up again more recently. So again, anything to do with product development and life at Redgate, you can reach us through these channels. I guess to wrap up as well, thank you again, Irene, for talking tonight. What we'd really like as well is to kind of reach out. Yeah, thank you. What we'd really like is to kind of reach out to you folks and reach out to the people that you know within your networks and kind of extend an invite for people to come and talk and share their experiences, as Irene's done such a great job of doing tonight. We're particularly keen to welcome sort of first-time speakers as well, and people from underrepresented communities. So we hope that we can provide a platform for people, irrespective of whether they're kind of pro speakers or new to the circuit and just want to spread a message. That's kind of what we're about. So if you're interested in speaking, do get in touch either with myself or the other people who have co-organised the events, or you can reach us on one of the channels I mentioned, Twitter or otherwise. And finally, on behalf of Redgate and the organising team, I just thank you all for coming along tonight and giving up an hour. Hopefully it was interesting. I found it super interesting, and we'd like to see you all again next time. So do keep an eye out on the Meetup channel and the notifications that we share, where we'll be posting information about our next talk and speaker. So thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed the evening, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.